The rancher gave his last horse to two Apache sisters. At dawn, their father came with 200 warriors. A man who has nothing left does not give away his final chance at survival. That was what everyone believed. That was what made sense in a world where men measured their worth by what they could keep. But when Hollis Vane led that horse out of the barn at sunset, dirt clinging to his torn shirt and exhaustion etched deep into the lines of his face, he did not look like a man making a rational decision. He looked like someone who had already come to terms with an ending he could not escape. The two young women standing at the edge of his land should not have been there. One leaned heavily against the other, her weight supported more by will than strength, blood soaking dark through the cloth wrapped around her leg. They did not speak. They did not plead. They did not even gesture. They simply watched him with eyes that expected nothing, eyes that had learned long before this moment that hope was a dangerous thing to hold. Hollis had spent 3 months alone on that failing ranch. 3 months since the drought turned his fields to dust. 3 months since the well ran low and the fences began to sag. 3 months since he had spoken to another human voice. In all that time, the one thing he had guarded, the one thing he had fed before himself, the one thing he had kept breathing when everything else withered, was that horse. It was his last possession of value, his only way out, the thin thread that tied him to survival. But something about the silence between those sisters broke something loose inside him, or perhaps repaired something that had been shattered long before the drought ever came. Without speaking, without offering justification, he unbuckled the reins and held them out. The older sister stared at him as if he had placed a loaded weapon in her hands. The younger sister's eyes widened, confusion mixing with fear, as though she were waiting for the trick, waiting for the moment the world reminded her how it truly worked. Men like him did not do things like this. Not without payment. Not without expectation. Not for people like them. Hollis only nodded toward the horizon where the last light bled into darkness and stepped back. They took the horse, slowly at first, then with urgency, disappearing into the gathering night as if swallowed by it. What Hollis did not know, what he could not have known, was that someone had been watching from the ridge above. Someone who had seen everything. Someone who would carry that image back to a waiting camp, where 200 warriors stood ready for word. When dawn broke the next morning, the horizon changed. Shapes appeared where there had once been only sky. Dozens at first, then hundreds, moving with purpose, advancing straight toward the ranch. Hollis stood in his doorway and watched them come, understanding in that moment that he had made a choice that could not be undone. Whatever followed had already been set into motion. The question was no longer whether they would reach him. The question was why they were coming and what would happen when they arrived. Hollis did not leave the doorway. His hands hung at his sides, fingers loose yet trembling. The rifle rested against the frame behind him, close enough to touch, untouched. He had known this moment would come. Some part of him had felt at the instant he let go of those reins. The figures on the horizon grew clearer, resolving into riders too numerous to count. They moved in formation, disciplined and deliberate. The sound reached him before the details did, the deep thunder of hooves striking hard earth, steady and relentless. His throat tightened. 3 months of silence followed by this. He thought briefly of running, but there was nowhere left to go. The ranch stretched behind him, broken fences leaning into dead ground. The barn stood empty, its door hanging crooked, the space where the horse once stood now hollow and accusing. He pressed his palms against the doorframe to steady himself as the sun climbed higher, harsh and unforgiving, casting long shadows across the land. Dust rose from the approaching riders like smoke, blurring their outlines. He squinted, trying to see. He wondered if the younger sister had survived the night, if they had reached safety, or if something worse had driven this force toward him. The questions twisted in his gut, mingling not with regret but with acceptance. He had made his choice. Whatever came was the price. The riders slowed at the edge of his property, their formation widening as they encircled the land with precision. Hollis counted 20, then 50, then stopped counting. This was not chaos. This was intention. One rider separated from the others and advanced alone. The figure sat tall, wrapped in leather and cloth that shifted with the wind. The rest waited, still and silent. Hollis forced himself to breathe. "Panic gets you killed," his father's voice echoed from memory. "Stay present." Present meant facing what stood before him. The lone rider reached the fence and dismounted. Hollis stepped forward into the open, refusing to meet whatever came while hiding. The rider crossed the yard, sunlight catching her face, and Hollis recognized the older sister, Ka. She moved with purpose now, her earlier exhaustion replaced by something harder. She stopped 15 feet away and studied him, her gaze sharp and measuring. Behind her, 200 warriors remained motionless. He waited. Finally, she spoke. "He wants to see you." Not a request. Hollis swallowed. "Who?" Her expression did not shift. "The one you gave the horse to is his daughter. You took something from him without asking. Now he will decide what that means." The formation parted. A man rode forward, broad and commanding, authority radiating from him even at a distance. Ka gestured toward him. "That is Naali." When he dismounted and approached, Hollis felt the weight of the man's presence settle like stone. Gray-streaked black hair, scars marking arms that told of survival. Naali stopped before him and studied him in silence. "You gave them the horse?" Hollis nodded. "Yes." "Why?" "They needed it more than I did." Naali stepped closer. "You knew what it meant." "Yes." "And you did it anyway." It was not a question. Nahali's daughter would have died without it. They were being hunted. Hollis felt his chest tighten. "Is she alive?" "She lives because of you." Then Naali spoke again. "Those men were coming here next. You saved my daughters, and you made yourself a target." He offered Hollis a braided strip of leather. "You will come with us. If you stay, you die." Hollis left with nothing but a sack and followed them into a land harsher than he had known. By dusk they reached the camp, a place of life, not war. Faces watched him with wary eyes. Naali spoke, tension eased slightly. Ka led Hollis to a small shelter and told him her sister wished to see him. Before he could respond, shouts rose. Riders were approaching. The camp moved with sudden urgency. Weapons were drawn. Ka thrust Hollis's rifle into his hands. "Stay close to my father." The riders arrived. Demands were made. Naali refused. Hollis stepped forward, revealing himself. Naali declared him kin. The first shot shattered the air. Chaos followed. Hollis fought, saved the shelter, felt blood and fear and resolve mix into something unbreakable. When the attackers retreated, Naali revealed the truth. A conspiracy. A contract. Land stolen through blood. Hollis chose again, without hesitation. He would not run. He would see it through. They rode through darkness guided by moonlight and Nahali's knowledge of land most men could not read even in daylight. 6 riders in total, Naali at the front, Ka and Nidita sharing a horse, the 2 warriors Takakota and Kurik flanking them, and Hollis bringing up the rear on the horse returned to him before they departed. The same horse he had given away. The same choice that had set everything into motion. They pushed the animals hard but not recklessly, careful not to lame them before the journey was done. Behind them the camp dissolved into the land, families scattering like shadows, fires extinguished, tracks erased, an entire community becoming invisible by necessity. The contract remained hidden beneath Nahali's shirt, wrapped carefully, its weight far heavier than paper alone could explain. Dawn broke cold and colorless. They had covered ground, but not enough. When Takakota returned from scouting ahead, his voice carried urgency without panic. Riders. 8, maybe 10. Tracking fast. Naali did not hesitate. They were an hour behind, maybe less. Nidita's face had gone pale, pain evident despite her resolve. Ka's hand tightened on her rifle. Hollis measured distance and time, calculating odds that did not favor them. 2 days to the marshal. 1/3 covered. Not enough. Naali spoke. We split. Ka protested, but his word held. The sisters would go north with the warriors. He and Hollis would draw pursuit east. Hollis understood instantly. If the hunters believed Naali carried the contract, they would follow him. Trust passed between the two men without ceremony. They parted quickly. Nidita looked back once. Then the canyon swallowed them. Naali and Hollis rode hard until the land narrowed into stone. A choke point. High ground. Limited escape. Here. We stand. Naali removed the contract and handed it to Hollis. If I fall, you run. Get this to Marshal Garrett. Redemption. 2 days northeast. Make him listen. Hollis accepted the burden without argument. The sound of hooves echoed. 15 riders emerged. The bearded man rode at their head. His voice carried. Give us the contract and walk away. Naali stepped forward. Come take it. Rifles rose. Hollis fired first. Stone shattered. Horses screamed. Gunfire tore through the passage. Hollis reloaded with shaking hands, bullets snapping past, dust filling his lungs. Naali fought with measured calm, each shot chosen. Still, the numbers pressed. The bearded man shouted again. You die for nothing. The truth won't save you. Hollis met Naali's gaze. A nod passed between them. Acceptance. Then gunfire erupted behind the attackers. Federal riders surged into the passage, badges flashing in the morning light. The hunters scattered, trapped. Within minutes, they were disarmed, bound, finished. Hollis sagged against stone, breath ragged. Naali stood bloodied but upright. Marshal Garrett dismounted, recognition passing between him and Naali. You came straight to me. That told me enough. Hollis handed over the contract. Garrett read in silence, anger hardening his features. This will shake things loose. Prisoners were taken. Statements gathered. Takakota and Kurik returned with Ka and Nidita. Naali held his daughters close. Ka approached Hollis. Father says you come with us. You are kin. Hollis felt the word settle deep. Naali clasped his forearm. You stood when you could have run. You belong with us. 3 weeks later, Hollis worked beside them in a new camp, his hands finding purpose again. The trials began far away. The horse grazed nearby. Each evening Hollis touched its neck and remembered the moment everything changed. He had given away his last chance to survive and found something greater in its place. 3 weeks later, Hollis stood beneath an open sky that felt different from the one he had known on his ranch. The air carried the scent of wood smoke and living earth instead of dust and decay. He worked alongside men and women who moved with quiet coordination, building shelters where a new camp had taken shape on protected land far from the reach of those who had hunted them. His hands, hardened by years of ranch labor, adapted easily to new methods, new tools, new rhythms. Children ran past him laughing, their voices unburdened by fear for the moment. Elders sat near the fires, sharing stories in low tones, watching the camp grow with patient eyes. Life did not stop because someone tried to destroy it. It simply shifted and endured. Ka brought him food as the sun lowered itself toward the horizon, sitting beside him without ceremony. Nidita walked again now, slowly but steadily, her strength returning with each passing day. Word came from distant towns of hearings and arrests, of men in expensive coats suddenly stripped of authority, of a contract that could not be explained away. The truth had teeth. Each evening, Hollis walked to where the horses were kept and found the one he had given away and received back again. He ran his hand along its neck, feeling warmth and life beneath his palm, remembering the moment he had stood in the fading light and let go of the last thing tying him to survival as he understood it then. He understood now that survival alone had never been enough. He had given his last horse to 2 Apache sisters at sunset. At dawn, their father had come with 200 warriors. And in the space between those moments, Hollis Vane had found what he thought the world had already taken from him. Purpose. Belonging. A family that chose him as surely as he had chosen them. Sometimes what you give away returns transformed into exactly what you needed all along.